Good afternoon, everybody. Today, I will be presenting on our proposal for the new affordable senior housing development as a part of the McKinleyville 2030 project. This project focuses on addressing the community's growing need for accessible, affordable housing for older adults while supporting long term sustainability, economic feasibility, and quality of life. Throughout this presentation, I'll walk through the need for the project, our recommendations for site selection, implementation strategy, ethical considerations, and the long term benefits this development would bring to seniors and the McKinleyville community. Before I move ahead, I want to address my background that is relevant to this project. I worked on campus for 2 years as the coordinator for our local OLLI sector, which stands for Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. And in that time, I was able to deeply connect with the needs of Humboldt County's senior citizens. I was also able to partner with local elderly enrichment organizations like Timber Ridge and different health organizations, which uniquely positions me to be involved in the background and outcome of this project. Okay, so moving forward. SR 24 is already a strong recommendation because it recognizes that McKinleyville needs a more senior, accessible, multi generational housing. However, as I reviewed the recommendation, I found that building housing units alone does not fully address what seniors need to remain in the community. Housing only works when residents can also reach healthcare, groceries, transportation, employment, and recreation, as well as social opportunities. It also needs to account for what happens when residents can no longer live fully independently, but does not yet need intensive assisted living. My recommendation is not to replace SR 24, it is to expand it into connected aging and community strategy that builds upon Humboldt Commons and links independent living with broader services that seniors need. Let's talk about why senior housing matters. In McKinleyville, 19% of the residents identified as age 65 or older. Um, this is from the census report from 2026. Those numbers show that accessible housing is not a small or isolated concern. However, one of my main recommendations is to replace the percentage alone with actual estimated resident counts using the most recent census data available from 2026. We should also divide our senior population into groups, examining how many seniors live alone, how many are identified as remaining in the workforce. This is important because seniors have different housing and transportation needs. A person who is 66 and still working may need reliable transportation and a smaller, accessible home. Someone who's 82 may need more in home health support, meal assistance, transition plan for assisted living. Senior housing should therefore be considered as a part of McKinleyville's economic, healthcare, transportation, and community infrastructure. Humboldt Commons offers an important foundation for recommendation. Its model emphasizes that active, independent living, resident participation, wellness, community connection, and the opportunities for intellectual and social engagement. However, future planning should build upon this model by addressing needs that may not be fully served by one development. These include affordable rental options, mixed income units, public transportation, workforce opportunities, more accessible housing, and a stronger pathway to assisted living and memory care. A dedicated senior community may also attract some older adults with other parts of Humboldt County or outside regions. That means that the needs assessment should evaluate both existing local demand and future demand created by the project itself. The goal is not simply to add more housing, it is to create a system that allows seniors to remain connected to the community throughout different stages of aging, as opposed to isolated, which so frequently happens. This recommendation follows a phased 5-year implementation plan because developing senior housing is much more than constructing buildings. Each year builds upon the work completed in the previous phase to ensure decisions are driven by data, community input, and long term sustainability. During year one, the focus is on research and community engagement. We begin by updating demographic information, analyzing the senior workforce and transportation needs, conducting local surveys and focus groups, reviewing the McKinleyville 2030 public comments, and coordinating with organizations like Humboldt Commons and Timber Ridge. This creates a clear understanding of what seniors actually need before major decisions are made. This is also the year where the survey is implemented. In year 2, we move into site selection and conceptual design. Candidate sites are evaluated using McKinleyville 2030's geography maps, including business concentrations, housing, parcel classification, population density, and transportation networks. The goal is to identify a location that connects seniors to healthcare, food, public transport, and community services, while developing a conceptual master plan that is a recommended housing mix. Year 3 focuses on feasibility, funding, and approvals. This includes securing site control, completing zoning and environmental reviews, developing the affordability strategy, finalizing engineering and architectural plans, and establishing funding sources for formal partnerships. By the end of this phase, the project is development ready. In year 4, construction begins, while the community programs are developed alongside the housing. Transportation services, healthcare partnerships, resident programming, and universal design features are implemented so that the residents have access to services they need as soon as they move in. Finally, year 5 focuses on occupancy, evaluation, and future expansion. Resident satisfaction, healthcare access, transportation, affordability, and aging in place outcomes are measured to determine whether the model should be maintained, expanded, or replicated elsewhere in McKinleyville. Before selecting a site or development model, SR24 should answer several very important planning questions. First, who is the project intended to serve? It should include current seniors, residents with disabilities, caregivers, extended families, and potentially seniors who may want to relocate to McKinleyville. Second, what do the residents actually want? The current report recommends community outreach, but I would like to make a local survey that is required as a first-year deliverable. I would ask about affordability, housing type, accessibility, pets, transportation, food, healthcare, social activities, volunteering, and employment. Third, where should the development be located? The geography map suggests that the town center area near Humboldt Commons and Timber Ridge may offer the strongest combination of housing, food, healthcare, transit, and walkability, which is vital. However, the final location should be chosen after evaluating land ownership, zoning, utilities, drainage, environmental condition, and accessibility. This mock-up shows what the expanded SR24 model could look like. The purpose of this is not to propose this is the final architectural design or claim that a specific parcel has already been selected. The design demonstrates that there is a relationship that should guide the site selection. Housing should be located near food, public transit, healthcare, walking routes, community activities, and higher levels of care. The development could include apartments, cottages, accessible units, and caregiver for multi-generational housing. A central community facility that could support arts, fitness, education, technology, workforce assistance, mentoring, volunteering, and social events would be crucial to this area. The connection to Timber Ridge is particularly important here. Humboldt Commons primarily supports active independent living, while Timber Ridge provides a more involved senior care. Coordinating the two could create a smoother transitions as residents' needs change and prevent seniors from having to leave McKinleyville. SR24 should be directly connected with SR11 so residents have access to healthcare, telehealth, visiting clinicians, and wellness support. It should also deeply coordinate with SR15 and AARP so seniors who want to work, mentor, volunteer, or build digital skills have the opportunities to do so. Public transportation must be a part of the project from the beginning. Access should include healthcare, groceries, employment, recreation, and evening and weekend activities, not only medical transportation. The current SR24 budget provides bronze, silver, and gold planning alternatives. However, those numbers should not be interpreted as the cost of constructing a senior housing complex. I recommend separating the budget into planning and pre-development, capital construction costs, and annual operating costs. Success should also be measured by residents' independence, satisfaction, healthcare access, transportation reliability, social connection, access to employment if necessary, and successful transitions, not only the number of units built. Throughout this course, bah! Throughout this course, we've evaluated recommendations using multiple ethical frameworks. I believe SR 24 aligns particularly well with utilitarianism and deontology. From a utilitarian perspective, John Stuart Mill argues that ethical decisions are those that create the greatest overall good. Expanding senior housing does more than provide homes. It improves independence, reduces caregiver burden, strengthens healthcare access, supports local business, and benefits families and the community as a whole. The overall benefit extends well beyond the residents themselves. From a deontological perspective, Immanuel Kant reminds us that people should never be treated simply as a means to an end. Seniors should not be viewed as a demographic, statistic, or a housing problem to solve. They deserve dignity, autonomy, and equal access to opportunities regardless of age, disability, or income. That is why my recommendation begins with community surveys and direct engagement. Seniors should help design the community they live in, rather than having those decisions made without their input. Finally, this proposal is sustainable and realistic because it builds upon existing assets like Humboldt Commons, coordinates with Timber Ridge and other strategic recommendations, and follows a 5-year phased implementation plan before major construction begins. McKinleyville clearly needs more senior, accessible, and multi-generational housing, but the final strategy should focus on more than just adding units. The expanded recommendation begins by listening to seniors and understanding the actual population, its workforce, the transportation needs, affordability, and enrichment needs of the community as a whole. It builds on the Humboldt Commons, coordinates with Timber Ridge, and connects housing with healthcare, transportation, food, employment, and social opportunities. The 5-year strategy allows McKinleyville to research, design, test, fund, develop, and evaluate the project before moving on to any future expansion. The goal here is not only to help residents age in place, it is to create a community where people can age with purpose, independence, dignity, and connection. These are the references and links that I used for my project. Please feel free to dig around in them. And thank you so much for your time. I am truly looking forward to what McKinleyville 2030 has to offer for our community. Have an amazing day.